There's one thing that we can't complain and moan about, and that's the UFC 294 main event in Abu Dhabi. Ladies and gentlemen, 294 main event in Abu Dhabi. It's gonna be a fight for the ages. It's gonna be a rematch. It's gonna be one of the best events we've ever seen in UFC history. It's gonna be main evented by former lightweight champion of the world, Charles "Du Bronx" Oliveira, versus his opponent, the current undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world, Khabib's cousin, Islam Makhachev. Ladies and gentlemen, this fight is gonna be top quality. Top quality, ladies and gentlemen. What are your thoughts? It's happening. It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. Before we even get into an explanation or a philosophical breakdown of this fight, let's kind of take you back to last year. So it was October 2022 in Abu Dhabi again, by the way. And Islam Makhachev went toe-to-toe with Charles Oliveira. So Charles "Du Bronx" Oliveira at the time was the undisputed champion of the world. Went toe-to-toe with Islam Makhachev. And the fight went, going into the fight, most people, based on Makhachev's previous performances, most people saw him as being the favorite going into this fight. He was objectively the favorite. Made a lot of sense. His wrestling was just top quality, top notch. It made it a lot of sense to see him fundamentally as being the favorite in the fight. So he was the betting odds favorite. He was everybody's favorite going into this fight. Whereas Charles Oliveira was the underdog, and rightfully, Makhachev went in, dominated that fight, dropped Charles Oliveira, and then submitted him with a beautiful head and arm choke, even past his guard. And I remember before that fight, I made a video, and I was predicting, or I did predict, that Charles Oliveira was going to beat Islam Makhachev. That was my prediction. So obviously, clearly, I was wrong. And my logic was that Oliveira's jiu-jitsu was incredible. Not many people can compete with him in terms of like his jiu-jitsu. But what I forgot was there's a thing called combat sambo. And the likes of Islam Makhachev managed to effectively mix their combat sambo skills and transcended that skill into MMA, which is even more superior than jiu-jitsu, coupled with their wrestling, which is just top quality. I missed that completely. And then going into the fight, Islam Makhachev dominated and submitted Charles Oliveira. I'm just going to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. I don't believe that the second fight is going to be any different. I believe that the second fight is going to be similar to the first fight, if not even worse of a whooping for Oliveira. Islam Makhachev is so dominant. Imagine actually fighting Alexander Volkanovski and beating him. No one beats Alexander Volkanovski. Nobody has beaten Alexander Volkanovski. The only person who did was Islam Makhachev. And someone can argue maybe the fight between Holloway, the second fight between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, Max won that. But regardless, the judges gave it to Alexander Volkanovski. So that's the reality. Nobody can beat the guy. And Islam Makhachev still won. Though it was a close fight, but Makhachev still found a way to beat him. In front of his home crowd in Australia, where all the fans were literally supporting Volkanovski. Makhachev's level, he's on another level in comparison to many of these fighters. So going into this fight, my prediction definitely is that I do believe Islam Makhachev will win either by TKO or submission. It's going to be by a finish. And for the most part, unfortunately for Charles Oliveira going into this fight, though he had an incredible performance against Beneil Dariush, but going into this fight, we're talking about a different level of competition here. That's the thing. We're talking about a Dagestani. We're talking about someone who's literally similar to Khabib. Like Islam Makhachev and Khabib, fundamentally there's no difference. Yeah, some can argue Khabib is better, but everything that Khabib can do, Islam can do. So it's going to be hard to say, well, Khabib is better. I mean, like, maybe he is better. Do you understand what I mean? I would say Khabib is better, but like everything Khabib can do, he can do. If Khabib can jump, he can. If Khabib can hoop, he can. So, like, going into this fight, fighting Islam is like fighting Khabib, right? Khabib Nurmagomedov, except that Islam is even more of a technical striker than Khabib. He's southpaw. He's got that devastating straight left hand. And going into straight left hand, high kick, beautiful. Mixed up with takedowns as well is amazing. So boys, ladies and gentlemen, I am just going to be honest. It almost seems like making this video is pointless because I don't see any way Charles Oliveira is going to win this fight, honestly. How? Is he going to submit Islam Makhachev? That's a possibility. Who knows? Maybe you could just run in, get a rear naked choke, take his back and sink it in and get a submission. That's a possibility, because with MMA, you never know, right? That's the thing. But if I was to bet my house on it, just like most people, I'd definitely bet that Islam Makhachev is gonna win. Islam Makhachev is just physically too strong for most of these fighters in this division. But on the other hand, though, the thing is, because Makhachev is head and shoulders above everybody in that division. So if I think of the likes of Dustin Poirier, the likes of Justin Gaethje, for example, or the likes of Charles Oliveira or Michael Chandler or even Conor McGregor, I think the only person who really stands a chance of beating Makhachev is actually none of those fighters. It's actually his current opponent, Oliveira. Stylistically, I'm just saying Oliveira doesn't stand a chance. But if any lightweight could beat Makhachev, stylistically, it's going to be Oliveira. But it's not going to happen. That's the thing. Because if Conor McGregor goes toe-to-toe with Makhachev, he doesn't stand a chance. If Poirier goes toe-to-toe with Makhachev, it doesn't really stand a chance. Justin Gaethje the same. I think Makhachev is just going to take him down just like Khabib did, submit them, dominate them on top, dropping elbows, just like they do. So the only person who really stands any chance is going to be Oliveira. And even Oliveira's he ain't going to do nothing. You know what I mean? Islam Makhachev is going to beat him. So who in the lightweight division could give Makhachev any level of competition? Nobody. No one. It's like when Khabib was in the lightweight division. He was head and shoulders above all of them. He was dominant. And the only person we thought could dethrone Khabib was Tony Ferguson. But now looking back retrospectively, it was foolish to even assume that Tony Ferguson was at a similar level to Khabib. Incredibly dumb to assume that. Ladies and gentlemen, I think Charles Oliveira does have few advantages going into this fight against Islam Makhachev. And one of the advantages I'd say personally is the fact that he's a highly decorated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler. Like, he's levels above most lightweights in terms of grappling. So I think that might obviously be an advantage going into this fight, because he has the most submission wins in UFC history. Most submissions, more than anybody else, more than the likes of Nate Diaz, Nick Diaz, just great submission artists like Ronaldo Jacare Souza, or the likes of Glover Teixeira, or the likes of Fabricio Verdum. We could talk about the likes of Antonio Rodrigo Minotauro Nogueira. All of these great Brazilian submission artists, Charles Oliveira still had more submissions than them in UFC history. So obviously, based on that resume, I mean, he does have an advantage, some level of advantage going into this fight in terms of his chances of finishing the fight. To be honest, he's obviously a great grappler, great submissions and stuff. And his striking is not bad as well on the feet. Although Islam dropped him, but his striking is not that bad, if I'm going to be honest. He's got good striking, knocked out, dropped Justin Gaethje multiple times. I mean, he was dropping Justin Gaethje left, right, and center. And not only that, but he knocked out Michael Chandler, who is a brawler. Hits hard, but Oliveira knocked him out cold as well. Submitted Dustin Poirier. So he's not anyone's clown. Just recently, he finished Beneil Dariush, who's a top contender. And most people I've spoken to, their prediction was that Beneil was going to beat him, but he didn't. So yes, we've got a real contender right here, but I think Islam Makhachev is unfortunately head and shoulders above everyone else. And going into this fight, honestly, Islam Makhachev is going to be too much for Charles Oliveira, and we'll definitely see a replica or replication of what happened in the first fight, or probably more of a worse beating, to be honest. And if Charles Oliveira doesn't stand a chance against Islam Makhachev, nobody else in the lightweight division does. Unfortunately, that's the reality. It's heartbreaking. Unless some welterweight comes down or Volkanovski goes back and challenges again, no one else stands a chance, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. Who could? In lightweight, no one, ladies and gentlemen. So Islam Makhachev is going to be as dominant as Khabib. And there's a mentality with these people from Dagestan, Russia. There's a mentality that they have that a lot of Brits or a lot of American people don't have in terms of MMA. These people train hard. Their fundamental religious values and beliefs in itself helps them to become more disciplined. And within that discipline, they become some of the baddest, toughest, motherfuckers in the history of MMA, honestly. We've seen it with Khabib Nurmagomedov, Khamzat Chimaev, Islam Makhachev, Umar Nurmagomedov, the likes of Zabit Magomed Sharipov. These motherfuckers are undefeated. Like, we can't compare ourselves as British people in MMA to these people. Americans can't compare themselves to people from Dagestan, Russia, or Chechnya. These people are head and shoulders above all. So yes, Brazil, as a country, at some level, had dominated MMA. For example, there was a time in the UFC back in 2012, out of all the 7 champions, 5 of them were Brazilian. Aldo, Renan Barão, Junior dos Santos, the list just goes on. And we had some featherweight champions as well were Brazilian. So they dominated MMA. And you had Lyoto Machida at some point as well, who was a champion. Mauricio Shogun Rua. The Brazilians dominated, but now it's the Dagestanis who are dominating MMA. No one else. And these people are head and shoulders above everyone. Their discipline, faith, is one of the reasons why these people are killing it in MMA. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, what are your thoughts going into this fight? Who do you have winning this fight? Is it Makhachev? Is it Oliveira? Why? I've just demonstrated or laid my reasons to who I believe is going to win this fight. And I would appreciate if I hear your personal take, to be honest. But yeah, this fight is not even going to be close. I think Islam Makhachev is just going to brutalize Charles Oliveira and perhaps submits him or gets a TKO. And then that's going to be his second title defense as well. So the guy is just top notch. Make sure to smash the like button down below, comment and subscribe. Peace.